Before Robert Baratheon wore the crown, he destroyed the Targaryens that had ruled Westeros for almost 300 years. A prince would disappear with another man's promised bride. A king would burn his own lords alive. A friendship would become hatred. And by the end, Targaryens would lose the Iron Throne. Most people believe Robert's rebellion began with Rhaegar and Lyanna. To understand why the Targaryens fell, we have to go back 20 years to a forgotten war, to the rocky islands of the Stepstones, where three young friends fought side by side, never imagining they would one day tear the Seven Kingdoms apart. Long before any of them wore crowns or ruled great houses, three young men stood together on the rocky islands of the Stepstones. The war they fought would later be remembered as the War of the Ninepenny Kings, a campaign to crush the last of the Blackfire pretenders and the sellsword kings who followed them. Among the young men was Prince Aerys Targaryen. Fighting beside him was his cousin, Stephen Baratheon, heir to Storm's End, and alongside them rode Tywin Lannister, the quiet heir to Casterly Rock, a man who already seemed far more comfortable commanding than following.
Whatever comes, we face it together.
And when the war ended, they returned to Westeros not as strangers, but as close friends. Looking back, it's almost impossible not to see the irony, because these three friends would become the fathers of the men who would tear the Seven Kingdoms apart. Robert's rebellion didn't begin with Rhaegar and Lyanna. It began with a friendship forged on the Stepstones. Aerys took the Iron Throne in 262 AC at just 18 years old. And by every account that survives him, he did not begin as the Mad King. He began as the kind of king people wanted to believe in, quick with a smile, generous with praise, the sort of man who could walk into a room full of strangers and leave with friends. For a brief moment, it truly seemed as though the Seven Kingdoms had found the ruler they had been waiting for. His marriage, however, told a different story. Years earlier, his father had become convinced that the prince promised by prophecy would be born from the Targaryen royal line. To make certain of it, he married his own son to his own daughter. Aerys and Rhaella became both husband and wife and brother and sister. Even by Targaryen standards, it was a marriage built not on love, but on duty. And over the years, that duty would slowly rot into fear, resentment, and cruelty. But none of that had surfaced yet. Instead, Aerys turned to the man he trusted more than anyone else, his childhood friend, Tywin Lannister. He named him Hand of the King, and together they ruled a kingdom that genuinely prospered. Trade flourished. Taxes remained fair. Border disputes were settled with words instead of swords. By almost every measure, the Seven Kingdoms entered one of the most stable and prosperous periods they had seen in decades. There was only one problem. Everyone knew who deserved the credit, and it wasn't the king. At court, people began whispering a joke behind closed doors.
Do they forget who wears the crown?
Most court gossip disappears as quickly as it appears. This one didn't, because with every passing year, it became harder to argue that it wasn't true. To everyone else, they were harmless whispers. To Aerys, they sounded like betrayal. Every compliment Tywin received felt like an insult aimed at the crown itself. Eventually, one man repeated the joke within earshot of the king, a young knight named Ilyn Payne.
And let him never speak those words again.
Aerys ordered his tongue torn out, and news of the punishment spread across Westeros faster than any royal decree ever could. For the first time, the realm caught a glimpse of the darkness, hiding beneath the king's easy smile. There was another wound, one even Tywin never forgot. Aerys had become openly fascinated with Tywin's wife, Joanna Lannister. At her own wedding bedding, he made a crude joke before the assembled lords, humiliating both husband and wife in a single careless moment. According to several accounts, Tywin offered his resignation soon afterward.
If my service is no longer required, Your Grace, you will remain my hand.
Whether it was friendship, pride, or simple possessiveness, no one can say. But he kept Tywin exactly where he wanted him, close enough to depend on, close enough to resent, and close enough to remind himself who truly wore the crown. Tywin accepted the king's decision without protest. As always, he buried the insult the way he buried everything else, silently and permanently. Years passed, but the cracks between the king and his hand never healed. If anything, they only grew wider. When Queen Rhaella gave birth to Prince Viserys, Tywin saw an opportunity to mend what years of pride and resentment had nearly destroyed. He hosted a magnificent tournament at Lannisport in the king's honor. A gesture meant not only to celebrate the birth of the prince, but to remind Aerys that their friendship was worth saving. And before the gathered lords of Westeros, Tywin made one final offer.
My daughter would make a worthy queen.
Your daughter? You forget your place, Lord Tywin.
Aerys didn't just refuse, he humiliated him. Before the entire court, the king made it clear that the daughter of his servant, no matter how wealthy, how noble, or how powerful, was unworthy of a Targaryen prince. The celebration ended almost as quickly as it had begun. There was no closing feast, no final toast. The music faded, the guests departed, and Tywin returned to Casterly Rock in silence. The bond that had been forged on the stepstones finally broke at Lannisport. Then came Duskendale, and after Duskendale, there was no bringing Aerys back. Lord Denys Darklyn wasn't trying to overthrow the Iron Throne. He wanted something far simpler, a royal charter, granting Duskendale greater independence, much like the privileges Dorne had received generations before. Tywin, still serving as Hand of the King, dismissed the request without hesitation. For Lord Darklyn, it wasn't merely a refusal, it was humiliation. And in desperation, he made a decision that would change the history of Westeros forever. He invited King Aerys to Duskendale, promising negotiations face to face.
Your Grace, you must not go. Must I? Have you forgotten who is king?
But by then, Aerys had grown tired of hearing what his hand thought he should do. So Aerys ignored him. With only a small escort, he rode to Duskendale, expecting diplomacy. Instead, he rode straight into a trap. Darklyn's men seized the king before his escort could react and dragged him beneath the Dun Fort, locking the ruler of the Seven Kingdoms inside a cold stone cell. Then the message was sent. The moment Tywin attacked the town, Aerys would die. For 6 long months, the Iron Throne stood empty. Outside the walls, Tywin Lannister surrounded the town with an army powerful enough to reduce it to rubble. But every day he waited was another day his king remained alive. One mistake, one reckless decision, and Aerys would never leave that dungeon.
Tywin has abandoned me.
The siege dragged on, and as it did, the whispers began. Some claimed Tywin was in no hurry to rescue the king. After all, the realm already had another Targaryen waiting. Prince Rhaegar was everything Aerys no longer seemed to be. Calm, respected, and admired across the Seven Kingdoms. Whether Tywin ever truly considered letting the king die is something history can never answer. But inside that dark cell, Aerys found his own answer. He became convinced that his oldest friend had abandoned him. From that moment on, he never trusted Tywin again. In the end, it wasn't an army that saved the king. It was one man. Sir Barristan Selmy of the Kingsguard slipped into the Dun Fort alone under the cover of darkness. He cut down the king's guard, found Aerys alive, and carried him out before the castle even realized its prisoner was gone. It should have been remembered as one of the greatest acts of loyalty in the history of the Kingsguard. Instead, it became the moment that unleashed the Mad King upon Westeros. Because the man who returned from Duskendale wasn't the same man who had entered it.
Let them all burn!
Aerys ordered House Darklyn wiped from the face of Westeros. Not just Lord Denys, his household, his servants, and every member of his bloodline the crown could find. House Hollard, bound to the Darklings through marriage, shared the same fate. Men who had played no part in the kidnapping died beside those who had. One young squire was executed simply because, during the king's captivity, he had once dared to tug at Aerys' beard. Only one child escaped the slaughter, a boy named Dontos Hollard, and even that mercy did not come from the king. It came from Sir Barristan Selmy, the very knight who had risked everything to save him. At Barristan's request, Aerys spared the boy's life. It would be one of the last merciful decisions the king ever made. Lady Sorala of Mere, Lord Dennis's wife, the woman the small folk called the Lace Serpent, met an even crueler end. Branded the mastermind behind the rebellion, she was tortured, mutilated, and finally burned alive. After Duskendale, the king who had once filled every room with laughter stopped leaving his own. Aerys locked himself inside the Red Keep, and for the next 4 years rarely stepped beyond its walls. He refused to let anyone bring a blade near him, not even for a simple haircut. His hair grew long, his beard became wild, his fingernails curled and blackened. The king who had once cared so deeply about appearances slowly began to look as broken as he had become inside. But it wasn't his appearance that frightened the realm, it was his mind. The whisper that had once merely irritated him, that Lord Tywin ruled while King Aerys merely reigned, had transformed into something far more dangerous. In Aerys' eyes, it was no longer gossip, it was proof. Proof that everyone around him, his hand, his court, perhaps even his own son, had been waiting for him to die so they could place another king upon the Iron Throne. While Aerys turned the Red Keep into a prison built from stone, fear, and suspicion, something very different was taking shape in the rest of Westeros. Far to the north, Lord Rickard Stark was quietly building something no army could destroy. For centuries, the great houses of Westeros had mostly married within their own regions. Starks married northern lords, Baratheons strengthened the Stormlands, Tullys looked to the Riverlands. It was the way things had always been. Rickard Stark decided it was time to do something different. Guided by his maester, he began weaving together an alliance that stretched across 4 kingdoms, not with swords or conquest, but with marriages. His daughter, Lyanna Stark, was betrothed to Robert Baratheon, heir to Storm's End. His eldest son, Brandon, was promised to Catelyn Tully of Riverrun, and his younger son, Eddard, was fostered in the Vale under Jon Arryn, where he grew up beside Robert himself, forging a bond that would one day change the fate of Westeros. To almost everyone else, it looked like nothing more than careful, sensible politics. But Aerys no longer saw the world the way everyone else did. To a king consumed by fear, every friendship looked like a conspiracy. Every alliance looked like the beginning of a rebellion. And as these great houses quietly drew closer together,
They're plotting against me. Every single one of them.
then Lord Walter Went announced the greatest tournament the Seven Kingdoms had seen in a generation. The summer of 281 AC, Harrenhal. No one could quite explain how Lord Walter Went, a lord of respectable name but modest fortune, had managed to pay for a spectacle this grand. Every feast, every prize, every tent raised another question. Before long, whispers spread through the camps of hidden patrons and secret motives. Some believed powerful hands were working behind the scenes. Others believed the tournament itself was merely an excuse for something far more important. In the end, however, history wouldn't remember Harrenhal for who paid for it. It would remember who came. Nearly every great house in Westeros answered the invitation. Lords, ladies, knights, princes, they all gathered beneath the black towers of Harrenhal. Even Aerys Targaryen left the safety of the Red Keep, bringing Prince Rhaegar beside him. It was the first time in years that the Mad King had willingly placed himself among so many armed nobles, and few failed to notice just how nervous he seemed. Then, midway through the tournament, someone appeared who wasn't supposed to be there. An unknown knight rode into the lists, wearing mismatched, ill-fitting armor and carrying a shield painted with a laughing weirwood tree. a sigil that belonged to no house in the Seven Kingdoms. Without revealing a name, the Mystery Knight challenged 3 specific opponents, the very knights who had recently mocked and abused a young crannogman from the Neck named Howland Reed. One by one, each of them was defeated, and before anyone could learn who the mysterious champion truly was, the knight disappeared. No prize was claimed, no identity revealed. By sunrise, nothing remained except a painted shield and 100 different stories. To most of the realm, it was simply the greatest mystery of the tournament. To Ares, it was something far more dangerous. Convinced the unknown knight was a spy,
Find him.
Your Grace?
I said find him.
Rhaegar searched the countryside himself, but returned with nothing except an abandoned shield. The tournament continued. On its final day, Prince Rhaegar Targaryen faced the greatest knight in the Seven Kingdoms, Sir Barristan Selmy. Before thousands of watching eyes, Rhaegar unhorsed him and claimed the championship of Harrenhal. By tradition, the victor earned one final honor. He would choose the Queen of Love and Beauty, the woman he believed worthy of wearing the crown of flowers above all others. Almost every eye turned toward the same woman. Princess Elia Martell, Rhaegar's wife, sat in the place of honor. But Rhaegar never stopped. He rode past Elia, past every noble lady gathered beneath the towers of Harrenhal. Then he stopped before a 15-year-old girl who had already been promised to another man. Without a word, he lowered a garland of pale blue winter roses into the lap of Lyanna Stark, then turned his horse and rode away.
Lyanna.
With a single silent gesture, Rhaegar had humiliated his own wife before the greatest lords in Westeros, insulted House Stark, and given Robert Baratheon a wound that would never heal. But the flowers weren't the real tragedy. The tragedy was that no one standing at Harrenhal understood what had just begun. Because before long, a prince would vanish. A furious heir would ride to King's Landing demanding justice.
Come out and answer me!
A father would follow his son into the capital, and neither of them would ever return. The Mad King would make a choice that no king could ever take back. Robert's rebellion wasn't about to begin. It had already begun. The realm just didn't know it yet.